right. Good morning, everybody. So we are live here now. My name is Katie Z. I'm the founder and CEO of Space Made Media, which is a blockchain public relations communications agency. Before getting started and diving into our first weekly update here, I want to let Paul Snow and David Johnston go ahead and introduce themselves. And then I think we can give a little bit of a background on PegNet for those who are just starting to follow along here.
Cool.
Okay. Well, I'm Paul Snow. I'm at a conference in Seattle right now, or will be attending one. It's early here, as you might see from the nighttime view out the window here in the hotel. The PegNet is basically envisioned as a payment and store of value platform that decentralizes financial services and brings total control to actual users, and enables basically the ability to do currency conversions within transactions so that parties that are interacting are not always going through a toll booth with a currency exchanger or looking on an exchange for a party to take the other side. So it's risk mitigation, game theory for its operation, group analysis of the market, setting values and positions in the PegNet. Totally transparent, completely auditable on the blockchain. And that's about it for all I'll cover right here.
Thanks, Paul. David, do you want to introduce who you are for those who are new to the PegNet community, and a little bit about what brought you to PegNet?
Sure. So David Johnston, I was an early crypto guy in 2012. A lot of people know me from decentralized applications. So I wrote the first white paper describing the idea of decentralized applications back in December of 13. Ran the first angel group in the space, one of the first VCs to do all tokens. So I've sort of been immersed in this stuff the last 6 or 7 years. And I've always wanted to see real world assets on the blockchain. That's why I funded Mastercoin back in the day, which had some of the first assets on Bitcoin, Ethereum. Obviously that gave us a whole new wave of smart contracts and all the rest. And so for me, I'm pretty excited about PegNet because it's sort of the fulfillment of a lot of what I've wanted to see, fully decentralized, fully user issued, without a lot of the downsides of a reserve-based token or a collateral-based token. So the first Oracle-based stablecoins that are mineable and decentralized, that's got me pretty excited. So I run a investment company now called Yeoman's Capital, and I'm a PegNet miner. I'm enthusiastic about it. I'm part of the community, and so excited to talk about what's been up with PegNet this week.
Awesome. This has been a head-spinning kind of week for traction, I think, from PegNet. So conversions and transactions just went live just over a week ago. And since then, it's been like this catalyst, or it's opened up the floodgates. We've gotten incredible traction with miners joining it. So I want to cover, let's start with the basics. Let's start with, for our weekly updates, on where we have gone in the last 1 to 2 weeks with the mining activity.
Sure. I mean, on that side, you can see from Factoshi, which has got a lot of those great mining stats, that we've gone from like 25, 35 million hash per second to over 100 million hash per second. So it's really cool to see. It looks like you've got it up there. The really fast organic growth of all of the crypto miners jumping in and pushing up the hash rate. So it looks like the average is past, 90 million hash per second. I saw one spike to, I think it was 120 or 140 million hash per second. So this is really important because it represents the security of the network and the security of the prices that are being published by the miners. So the more good actors we have in moving into the ecosystem that are earning PEG and getting that reward and increasing the hash rate, the more and more difficult it becomes for an attacker to come in and try to mess with the system. So this has been sort of one of those big things we wanted to do with the bootstrapping. That's why I've been mining, is I've wanted to see the security in the network increase, and now it's just gone through the roof, which is really cool.
What I found funny, I saw on Twitter this morning. So yesterday you made a post, David, about we're at 70 million hash per second now, and then Niels chimed in. He said, "David, that's so yesterday." And it was like, and I think a week ago we were at 30 million, and it was like, wow, pretty incredible stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool, because this is a CPU mining hash. This is something that is bottlenecked in RAM and in memory, which I think was a great choice by the PegNet developers and Paul as the inventor of PegNet last year, to kind of go down that road of picking something that everybody could participate in. So this isn't being dominated by, somebody with a bunch of ASICs. Like, this is pretty broad, and we're seeing miners from Asia, from Europe, from North America, from all over the globe jump in. But I think it's probably connected to conversions, because now that we see PEG has a price in the system, the rewards are a lot more real, right? Before it was a number, now it's a number that translates into a certain number of Bitcoin or Ether or dollars or whatever they want to denominate their rewards in. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I know Paul's been mining and converting into gold, because I see his ticker has changed to gold miner, 100% gold miner.
Yeah, but with my small amount of mining is getting washed out by all the mining that's come in. So we're really looking forward to mining pools, because mining pools will allow us to allow miners to get a steady rate of returns by pooling all of their mining power together. And progress on that front has been progressing. I mean, that's been moving pretty quick as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We'll need mining pools sooner than later, and I know there are 2 or 3 groups working on it. So I wouldn't be surprised by our next weekly update if there's more news on that front.
I also want to point out that because we're CPU mined, it means that every party that is mining is really, as far as their CPU and as far as the power consumption, they're on the same footing as even the professional miners, because the RAM hash means that, yeah, you could build hardware that's faster, but it wouldn't be significantly faster, because the real problem is DRAM access speeds. And if there was an easy solution to DRAM access speeds, it would be applicable to all architectures. So one of the ways to look at the PegNet is that we're putting pressure on solving a problem that can increase the speed of computation worldwide by creating better DRAM access speeds. And we are not creating a hash that throws a lot of research and development into an area that has no application to anything outside of that particular problem. So if we can make DRAM faster for a miner, we can make DRAM faster for your laptop. And so it is a more ecological, more industry-wide way of putting pressure on part of the computational system that is not a dead end or a siloed kind of advance. This is something that'll help us all. But this also means that when we set up the mining pools, we'll be able to set up mining pools that allow people to mine to support to support organizations and support the movements that they really believe in. So I predict that we'll have mining pools where you'll be able to mine on your computer and support a organization like the Red Cross, or support an organization like USIF, or supporting an organization like your I don't know, local religious organization that you work with, or social organization, whether you are pro this or pro that. You'll be able to mine and support them with your computer, and not necessarily burn just a lot of electricity doing it, or having to buy special hardware to do it.
Yeah, for those who caught the launch announcement AMA, they'll know that that's something I'm particularly really excited about. And as that comes about, find me on Discord if you guys are starting up any mining pools and interested in that. And some of what I'm doing with PegNet is non-technical, but it's making sure that the word's getting out to the media, and that that there's a lot of positive attention being had around PegNet, because this is truly breakthrough for the industry, I think.
Yeah, and this is all also about the security, because even though miners who join a mining pool don't often contribute in price gathering, what they do provide is pressure on the pool to be as honest and as good as possible. Because if someone decides that that pool is not doing their job of providing good prices, then they can join another pool. They can leave. And centralization of mining power is a lot harder when it's so easy to gather distributed mining power. And if there's not a barrier, because there's a real barrier with Bitcoin, the difference between a piece of hardware on your desk that is built for Bitcoin mining versus a computer is so vast that there's no point in trying to mine with your computer. It just doesn't contribute anything. Now you're on equal footing. If they have a CPU and some RAM, your CPU and RAM is just as fast as their CPU RAM. 100 people mining on computers is certainly equal to or better than 100 persons worth of hardware that they buy, and the hardware may be more expensive. So anyway, there's a lot of economy of scale here that works really well with CPU mining.
Yeah, David, I want to check if you had anything to add to that before I move along.
No, that's great. No, I think Paul's kind of hit it on the head. We need to change the dynamic from this massive energy consumption to, we have here a hash that consumes a tiny portion of that type of electrical power and is something that everybody can run on their commodity hardware. Like Paul said, maybe somebody will come up with an optimization. Hopefully that takes at least a year or two, and we can build a really broad, really strong community in the meantime. And if they do, they will have solved a very fundamental computer science problem that would then probably benefit everybody in the world. So, oh no, we solved a hard computer problem and benefited the rest of humanity. Wouldn't be the worst outcome in the world if somebody ASICizes what we're doing with LXR hash. But it'll be interesting to see how it develops, but I think we're off to a great start.
Absolutely, I think so also. So for these weekly updates, I want to kind of hit on some key points. So our hash rates, giving everybody the quick and dirty, where we stand with our any updates for exchange listings, new pegged assets onto the network, as well as what our quote unquote market cap or volume looks like as well. But if I can pause that to just actually introduce a little bit, so Paul is out in Seattle, or just outside of Seattle in Bellevue right now, for a really important technology conference that has some of the biggest names in AI and futurism, and like Peter Thiel and others. Paul, do you want to just give a little update on what kind of conversations you're expecting to experience and listen in on, and also hopefully participate on.
Yeah, this is a futurist conference. It is being run by George Gilder. George Gilder came to the Texas Bitcoin Conference and was one of our keynote speakers in 2015. He was our keynote speaker in 2015, and he has historically been one of those people everyone looks up to in terms of looking at what the trends, what is going to change the economy, what advances are going to have impacts and where. And so he's very heavily respected, and somebody that I do know on a personal level, and I really have a lot of respect for him myself. Well, his name and his position in the industry and his track record is brought together Peter Thiel, like you're saying, Steve Forbes, Tim Draper, and a lot of other heavy hitters. I was trying to pull up my cheat sheet to list them all out of the conference, but this is an opportunity to rub shoulders with people who are looking at what's going to change the world. And so I'm looking forward to conversations with them about how we can decentralize finance, how we can create the same kinds of functionality that you need in order to transact with different companies, different parties in different markets globally, without having a choke point that is controlled by a banking and financial sector that is so oriented in debt that all of the access to the financial system depends upon qualification. And when you do that, you leave out most of the world. The thing about crypto is it's not debt-based, it's asset-based. And once you get into asset-based economies, then your resources and your productivity have equal footing with resources and productivity in the Western world. Equality, changing the world structure from a pyramid where the vast majority of people are disadvantaged and only the very top have, the same access and advantages of the financial system, that they would really like, have the preferred access to the financial system. Changing that to a pillar where your access to the financial system depends upon your own ability to pay and your own ability to work and your own ability to contribute resources. This is what's going to make the world a more equitable place, but it'll also vastly increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of the economy in all of the world, not just for privileged parties.
There we go. Now, I think this conference and this gathering, such a high level of some of the most brilliant problem solvers of today's problems are coming together, I think is one really important for the progression of some of these important issues that we're facing today around the world. And I think PegNet is a very relevant cryptocurrency, assets on the blockchain, decentralized finance is a very relevant conversation to be had. So I just wanted to share with the community who's watching this, what we're doing right now, what's going on, how active we are, and what kind of conversations we're having. So moving along to some of those other quick and dirty facts, let's get into letting everybody know what kind of resources that they should be bookmarking onto their web browsers. One of them is PegNetMarketCap.com. So I'm going to go ahead and share that and let David or Paul, whoever wants to take it, cover kind of where we've gone in the last week or so and where we're at. You guys can see that.
Sure. Yeah, no, I really love this website. I find myself checking it every morning. It's got a pretty complete list of the 30 different assets that are on the PegNet right now. So as you scroll down, you see Peg, Peg to Gold, Bitcoin, Factom, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, the US dollar. So most of the major fiat currencies, most of the major cryptocurrencies, plus gold and silver. And so it's great to have sort of one place where you can see all of these prices for the top assets in the world. And PegNet is really focused in on the top, most liquid, most globally traded assets. Back to that vision of bringing all these real world assets onto the system is pretty cool to see. So you can see how much money has been flowing into the system. It's up to $368,000 has been added in assets. And then just recently, they started tracking the daily volume. So this is people converting from one crypto or one asset to another inside the PegNet. And it's amazing. We have crossed $1 million in daily trading volume. So there you see it on the chart. I guess 1.3 million yesterday, which is really cool to see, right? People are using PegNet for decentralized conversions of assets inside of their own wallets, right? And so I wrote a whole post about this over the weekend, Ready Trader One, after I noticed sort of this person that had been going back and forth between different cryptos. And the amazing thing was, after 111 conversions, he had spent 11 pennies to do those conversions, right? So he started the day with $910 and he ended up the day with $938. So made a nice little 3% gain, 27 bucks for the day. But it's not about the gain, it's about the fact that he wasn't wiped out by fees, right? Because normally if you take even like super low presumed fees on an exchange like 0.05%, you'd still pay $50 to do that same number of trades and that same amount of volume, right? Because he moved back and forth about $100,000 in volume over the period of the day. So instead of making money on a typical exchange, he would have lost $22. And so that's pretty amazing to see, and this is somebody sort of looks like they're testing the system, but I thought it was a really cool example of what this makes possible that wasn't possible before, because normally there's this tension between fees and liquidity, right? Most of the DEXs, the decentralized exchanges, suffer from low liquidity, but typically have very low fees, right? Or you go to a centralized exchange and they've got a lot more volume, they have a lot more liquidity, but they have much higher fees, right? So for the first time, this is a system where you don't have any liquidity issue because you're converting your own assets, right? The protocol doesn't care how much money you're converting. You convert $1,000 or $1 million or $1 billion of value. It's just going to take the prices from the oracles, look at the conversion and do it for you. And that's pretty amazing that we've effectively solved that tension between liquidity and the ability to move without a lot of fees. So, I'm so excited about that because I remember testing the first ever decentralized exchange built back in 2014 on Mastercoin. And, it was cutting edge at the time, but man, was it painful. Like we couldn't get any liquidity on the system. Everybody was sort of trying to bootstrap it, but, it just suffered from the same sort of challenges that everybody then that came after it. The next 6 years faced those same challenges of getting enough liquidity on the book. So it had these amazing advantages of self-custody and totally decentralized and super low fees, but there wasn't enough activity on the system. So it seems like we've finally addressed some of those issues.
Yeah, I was in our conversation that we were having yesterday, David, and I just want to share it with the people. listening in here is, so you were breaking it down, and again, that whole head spinning kind of traction and action and some of the stuff coming to life that I know Paul and a lot of the community have been working towards for a year or better now is, okay, so this guy made 111, this guy made 111 transactions or conversions.
Conversions, yeah.
Conversions in one day. And that cost them 11 cents. Now, their profit is not, you know, they didn't profit, you know, $300. They were profiting, what was it, around $30?
Yeah, 27 bucks, a nice little 3% gain, but that's not bad for one day. I mean, a lot of people are happy to get that off of a year of, you know, their CD or bank account. Like, you used to be able to get those rates. You can't even get those rates anymore.
Okay. And then, so then you're kind of breaking it down. You're like, look, so if they made only $3, they still would have been profitable in this. And then you're going back to when I remember, I think it was a Super Bowl some years ago, maybe 15 years ago or so, and E-Trade kind of dominated all of the commercials. And at that time it was, here, now you can get into trading for $10 a trade, but the average Joe is limited to a couple of trades a day, or they're going to be wiped out, all of their profits, right? And so here is, and I'll actually pull in one of the analogies that you've had. If you think of Bitcoin as your being your own bank, PegNet kind of operates as being your own asset manager. So now you can function at these very low and affordable trades, managing your assets. And as this grows, this is just the beginning. So anyone who's listening in on this, as we are having this phenomenal traction, it is still early days.
Yep, absolutely.
There. I don't know if Paul has anything to add. I want to say congratulations to Paul, because he's been doing a phenomenal job with that.
Well, I'm not really sure if I have anything to add to that. It is impressive.
Very modest Paul over there.
Well, it's the game theory. I mean, part of the problem here with the PegNet is that it is all built on game theory. We are very, very early. It is possible that we'll need to adjust or tweak things in response to what we learn about the game theory in the PegNet. So I make sure everybody understands that this is a dynamic system, and we can't game it, but we can modify some of the inputs that go into the game theory to ensure that it remains stable and it fulfills its fundamental purpose, and that is to serve as a way to manage your assets so that you can increase or decrease your exposure to whatever you want within the PegNet affordably and on your own, in your own wallet, as well as be able to facilitate transactions in assets you don't really want to hold, but you need because the market demands. For example, remittance. You want to be able to produce pesos when pesos are needed. You want to produce USD when USD is needed, or euros when euros needed. But you don't want to have a great big account for all of those assets just to facilitate trade. You want to be able to move into them quickly and move out of them quickly, so that your treasury and your account is in the assets that you trust and that you believe in, not the assets that the basically the financial network and the various jurisdictions that you're working with have to use. And by the way, I'm a big proponent that everyone should, any jurisdiction, any country should be able to self-determine what assets they use to price goods and services. And in a world where that does not create trade friction, then why not? It's their country, it's their region, it's their group of countries. In the case of the euro, they have the right to choose how to price goods and services, but that should not that should not cost consumers a lot of money to the money changers. Oh, by the way, this week there was a suggestion that we change the name of the PegNet to Jesus's whip. Anybody who knows a little bit about their Bible knows that the only group of people that Jesus apparently got mad at was the money changers, and he took a whip out and chased them out of the temple, and really that's I won't be so I don't know, what do you want to call it, arrogant as to say that we're on par. But the principle is, when people get between you and the transactions that you need to make, they extract a cost, and that cost is in many ways unfair.
Well said.
Yes, agree on that. Unless David has something else to add, I'm gonna pass it off to some really exciting news. Tomorrow, I believe, we will be live on our first exchange, right? VGate. I'll let you touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, this just came out of the community. People have been reaching out wanting to list PEG. Paul, maybe you have some more context, but somebody reached out in the community and said, "Hey, we're going to list PEG." That's great. Go for it. And I think this will be the first. So yeah, I think everybody's been signing up for their accounts, and as far as I understand, it's the decentralized exchange. So it'll be cool to see that go live. From their announcement, I think it takes deposits in the next 24 hours and then starts trading sometime tomorrow, but it wasn't clear if that's in Asian time zones or US time zones. So we'll see. But in the meantime, get your account set up and we can all experiment with it as it goes live. Paul?
Yeah, this happened really fast.
Yeah, I've been talking to Christy over at VGate, who reached out to me maybe a month ago. Their original goal was to be live when we turned on conversions. They weren't able to make that goal, but they continued working in the background, and we're often put in the position to provide technical assistance to parties who are integrating Factom into their exchanges or into their architecture. And VGate was able to handle everything with very, very, very few questions, just using the documentation and the APIs that were developed by so many people working on PegNet. I only hesitate to start listing people because I know I'll leave somebody out who's really, really critical. Yeah, the developers deserve all of this. Now, I did a lot of initial development, but the good developers came in and they've managed to fix all my code. So great shout out to them.
Absolutely. And to that end too, maybe you should have said this in the beginning, that PegNet, just to underscore it, PegNet is 100% built on community. So if there's anyone that's watching this who would like to get involved, whether that be from development, I work more on the media and marketing side. If you've got some graphic skills there that you want to contribute, content, whatever it is, I mean, please, we'll share the Discord when we post this on YouTube. That's definitely like the town square where you can kind of jump in and just start talking to the community and seeing where you want to help, and we'll accept it all.
Right. And I think this also needs to be noted that unlike so many projects that we see that have sprouted out in the last few years, PegNet is a completely distributed and autonomous protocol. So there's no foundation, no company, no token set to the side, no developer fee built into the system. That it is truly the Bitcoin model. But that also means that we're completely dependent upon the community and word of mouth and parties that see the opportunity and invest. There is no centralized entity that has a special place. Everybody that gets in now gets in early.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we're getting a couple of questions into the chat side to touch on Pegonomics. And so maybe Paul or David, you want to take a stab at explaining the relationship between factoids, Factom's token, and the PEG from the PegNet.
Sure. So seeing the questions in the chat, the first one's really about the gateways. So there's gateway number 1, which is you can convert factoids into pegged factoids and then pegged factoids into any other pegged asset, or you can convert PEG into any of those pegged assets. So effectively, the goal was to put everything on chain. So factoids, this is built on the Factom Protocol, which is in turn built on Ethereum and Bitcoin. And because it's built on Factom, when you convert factoids, we have a on-chain record of that conversion process. So you have 100% auditability of the whole thing. The same with PEG, right? We can see the genesis of PEG with every mined block since the genesis block. So when somebody converts PEG in, we have a 100% auditable record of that as well, right? So whether they came in through mining or they came in through converting crypto, we have a fully auditable on-chain process where you don't have to trust anybody else that says, oh yeah, we put some money in a reserve, trust us. No, this is fully on-chain. And so I think that's a really important point. It's gonna be interesting to see how that balance develops. If one is cheaper than the other, then maybe people will use more of one gateway and more of one gateway or more of the other. But the mining dynamic is really interesting because if the difficulty is low, maybe part of this, we're seeing this big mining increase with the hash rate. That may well be because people say, oh, well, that's my easier way to get into the system if you've got a lot of computers, right? Versus, oh, well, for the average retail person, maybe it's just easier for them to buy factoids and convert them themselves, right? So it depends on who you are, and it depends on sort of your situation. But I think it's going to be interesting to see that balance that develops. But there's some, I think, some good game theory in the way that that's going to balance. One transition that we'll go through is as PEG gets listed on exchanges, then soon we're going to be able to have a market price for PEG. So that'll get implemented, but that's as it gets on enough exchanges to start getting picked up by the different APIs where the oracles get their price data feeds. So from CoinCap.io and CoinMarketCap and all the places where they're pulling data from, as soon as they have a data feed for PEG, then that can get added in. I won't get too more technical than that, but there's a lot of information. There's a link that the person put for GitHub for, sort of where you can track some of these issues. And then the second question is PegNet dependent on the factoid price? Not really. You can use either of these gateways, but again, I think it's going to be a balance. People have sort of a lot of optionality there to get in either way, but so far people have burned more factoids for PegNet than during the entire history of Factom, the last 4 or 5 years. So, that's been great to see, the real world usage. And I think somebody showed a chart the last month or so since conversion started, there's been almost zero inflation in factoids. So this consumption is really starting to change things. So anyway, I'll leave it there, but I think those are great questions and things that people are thinking about and talking about and trying to figure out as the system bootstraps.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to just, for those who are going to be watching this later that might not be able to read in the chat, I'm just going to read over the question and let you take a stab at it. So Belazar or Belazor has said, I don't know much about crypto, but we need to fully trust an exchange when using it. I ask because we all know the Chinese government has their hands in pretty much everything that operates in China, and the Chinese government has gained a lot of negative press lately. How sure are we that the exchange can be trusted?
So, from my understanding, this is I think they're referring to ViteX, the exchange that's listing Peg. Never trust an exchange with your crypto. I don't care which country it's from. None of the exchanges I used in 2012 still exist, right? Mt. Gox is gone, BitInstant is gone. Like, don't trace an exchange with your crypto. The best thing you can do is, deposit it, make the trades you want, and then do withdrawals and hold it in your own private keys. But my understanding of this particular one is that it is a decentralized exchange, and you hold the private key, you hold the wallet. So there's less risk with this type of one, but that's a good note in general. Like, never trust an exchange. Get as least amount of exposure as you can. And that's the whole point of PegNet, is you can hold the assets yourself. You can move them around in the PegNet between all of these different assets and never have to send even a transaction to anyone else. It's all within your wallet. You and the protocol, that's it. There's no counterparty. So I'll leave it there. But.
Great answer. I don't know if Paul has anything to add to that, but I know I learned some hard lessons when I got early into trading. That's how I got into this whole industry. I said, hey, let me take a stab at trading, and you learn quickly, that you got to protect yourself. No one else is going to. Paul, you're on mute. Let me see if I can unmute you. Where are we at? Paul's now on mute.
Oh, how do I get?
Go.
You're good.
All right, so this is a decentralized exchange. It is that means that you are holding your assets. I'm not entirely certain how they're implementing the PegNet integration. More than likely, you are putting your Peg assets onto an exchange to do the trades. But there's a lot to be learned still. We will learn more as we get this exchange up and we see how it operates. But Dave, I'll just say David's right on all those points. I'm in the same boat. All the early exchanges I used are no longer there, but I did get into Coinbase pretty quick, and Coinbase is still there. So, it's true. But I
profit on Coinbase, however.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to all these guys.
Yeah, I want to highlight to those who are new to the PegNet community too, as we're growing very quickly, and we do anticipate we'll be on the CoinMarketCap and geckos of the world. So each of the assets, so you have pegged Bitcoin, pegged Euro, so forth and so forth. It is really important to bookmark the PegNet market cap website, because that's a much more accurate depiction of what the activity looks like within the PegNet ecosystem. Because if down the line, pegged Bitcoin gets listed or named on CoinMarketCap, for example, it's not going to have an accurate representation. And perhaps I'm not the best to explain the technical reason for why that is, but maybe David, you could help people understand why PegNet market cap is essential to understanding the health of the ecosystem.
Well, it's just a great visualization, right, for the price that the oracles are publishing with every block, right? So every 10 minutes, the miners submit their proof of work and their prices that they've gathered. And there's a sorting or grading algorithm that looks at the top 50 miners and looks at all the prices and tries to find the median price, so who's closest to that median price. And it uses that median in order to pick a price for each of the 30 assets in the next block. So the top 25 miners get rewarded, which is a cool aspect of PegNet. It's not just like one person per block, it's the top 25 are each awarded 200 PEG. So there's 5,000 PEG in total rewarded per block. So that's another way that we keep that sort of decentralized. And, that's a great way to visualize all that is pegnetmarketcap.com. I use it every day, but it shows you what's happening on a block by block basis. It has a lot of the historical charts of where the prices have been. And yeah, it's cool to see the supply and sort of all the active activity going on there.
Yeah, for sure. I check it every day as well. So for the community, if you're interested in mining and, hopefully winning one of those block rewards of 200 PEG, there are mining guides that are out there. We're continuously working to improve the understanding and user friendliness of this. And so I'll post a link on that and on YouTube. Again, all the links are on Discord as well.
Sure. The other website I'd highlight is PegNet.org. It has the mining guide. It has a link to the PegNet D wallet. It has a link to Discord, all that kind of stuff. So that's another great one. And the third one I'd probably highlight, other than PegNet.org and PegNet Market Cap, is also Factoshi. So we saw that earlier. That's our third one that I really highlight because you can see a lot of the mining statistics, the Oracle records, the winners in the blocks, the difficulty, and all that kind of stuff, all based on there. So between those three, you've got a pretty good insight of what's happening on the network. And yeah, Paul, I know that folks are working on improvements to the Explorer. Maybe we also want to highlight explorer.factom.com as a resource, because as that gets improved with more and more metadata for applications like PegNet, you're going to be able to see sort of use that as an explorer where you can look at an address. So that's still being worked on, but will be another cool visualization into the system.
Hold on, Paul, we got you on mute. Hold on. We're competing. 1 second, I'll do it. I'm trying to. Oh. It's not letting me do it. Paul, you want to?
All right.
There we go.
Sorry about that. It's so difficult for me to speak. I'm so shy. There are a couple of explorers. We do have the explorer.factom.com, and there's also the Factoid Authority has an explorer. And both of these explorers have slightly different navigational aspects walking through the blockchain. And I use them both, and I just want to make sure everybody realizes. There's also the factomprotocol.org, which is a website that tells you a lot about Factom, the authority nodes. A lot of the authority nodes are heavily contributing to the PegNet, and so that's another good resource.
There we go. All right, unless anyone has any last thoughts or last questions, I'm gonna close this weekly update out. We'll come back next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern time for the next update. Oh, David, you're on mute now.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, no, I'm glad we could touch base on this, and I think it's worthwhile to sort of highlight what's happening, Hashrate growth, first exchange, sort of all the things that people are doing. So yeah, no, I think this is a great format. And so we'll see you guys all next week.
All right. Over and out.
See ya.